Adventuring Party for the 4th week of June 2020. This week, the party are finally going to reveal which RPG is the greatest of them all. Well, once we sort through them at least. This may take a few episodes, folks. The Adventuring Party, discussing tabletop and rated gaming the Irish way. Welcome to the party. I'm Shane.
I'm Owen.
I'm Liam.
And I'm still Savage Mick.
Somehow. Probably done that joke before. So, around about the time of March, I think I became overcome with something called March Madness.
Well, you probably work for one of these multinational companies that shove basketball at you, do you?
I work for a multinational company, but so far I've managed to avoid any of the sports ball teams. But I did get a little obsessed with the idea of brackets, of having an exponent of two, number of a thing, and comparing them one against the other until at the very end we have the ultimate of our chosen subject. And of course, because what are other kinds of gaming? I have chosen RPGs as our first subject. So, welcome, ladies and gentlemen.
Are you explaining sports stuff via math? Which, I mean, makes sense, but...
I guess it's not really an alien concept to anybody who does the whole sports thing. I mean, granted, you could take a look at the GAA these days. Well, not these days because nobody's playing anything. But, trying to explain Super 8 to people is like, what?
To our American listeners, fantasy football is just D&D with pig leather.
Actually, yeah, that's fair.
Largely, yeah.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. We're about to determine the greatest RPG of all time.
All time.
From a very arbitrary 64-man list.
Elimination, you say?
Elimination.
Oh, brilliant.
Okay, do we want to get started then?
Sure.
I don't know that any of us exactly know what we're going to do next, but yeah, let's do it. Let's go.
Okay. So, we're first round, 64 RPGs picked semi-arbitrarily and randomized. First selection is...
So, quick question before we start out. Right? We've all got one vote, yes?
Yeah, there's going to be tiebreakers. We're going to have knock down, slug down our arguments about this.
Okay,
so we've all got a vote. So there's 4 votes going. Who's the casting vote?
I think we all got one. We all got one tiebreaker. I think.
What about a D4?
And then it comes back around or something. I don't know. Yeah, a dice. Yeah, a dice could work.
Or the classic coin. Do we trust? Do we have a dice bot in the Discord? Oh.
You guys will have to trust me.
Yeah, I get that.
Metal dice here.
Oh, look, it's nice and valuable. I think the dice deciding is fair.
Yep.
I think the dice deciding is fair.
Dice appropriate to whatever systems are involved, so we can't just say 1d20 or something. It'll depend on the system.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Fair.
Well, if you make it double blind, so someone rolls the dice and someone else is... No, that doesn't work either. Never mind. I'll leave you gentlemen to it.
I think the people will have to trust us.
Yeah.
And they have so far. This is, if I'm correct, this is an episode this is not episode 600, is it? It's not. But we're coming close, folks. We're getting real close.
I don't know, my memory's going a bit fickle in my old age.
You joined back in the early 300s, the 200s?
I was there for episode 1, man. Episode 1.
Oh, you were? How does it feel to still be attached to this sinking ship? 600.
Well, these guys are keeping it afloat. You changed the slogan. I like it. Gaming the Irish way.
I did. I sort of went around the houses and I couldn't stand the slogan. So I feel like everybody should be talking about Irish gaming, a bit like a perpetual Paddy's Day. Right. So we are closing on episode 600. So
we're also closing at 5 minutes into the session.
Yeah, let's get to the first one. The people want to hear what.
No, hold on. This is important. If you're a former party member, 600 is coming up. I mean, you cannot miss that. If you've been with us from the start, we'd love to hear about your favorite episodes or anything else you want to say about the podcast at this stage. And if you're new to us, the 600 episodes to listen to. It's like there's more of us than there is episodes of Hill Street Blue or
You mightn't be able to
Casualty.
get all of the episodes if you were to take a look at the RSS feed, but if you take a look at the website, they're all up there. But they're also on various things, different sources. I think like your Last FM and your
Spotify?
iTunes and stuff have them all.
Yeah.
Spotify takes it from the RSS feed, so I don't think Spotify has them all.
But as we close in on episode 600, like, you want to be there. It's going to be a real party. Okay, so I'm done plugging. So let's go.
Okay, so let's begin the 64 RPG elimination bracket with a young contender versus an old hand at all this. Pathfinder 2nd edition versus Traveller. Any edition.
Oh, no way.
Oh, you have to hit me where it hurts straight at the gate.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Pathfinder 2nd edition.
To win or to lose?
To win.
To win, of course.
It's the best balanced RPG that has been done in Yonks. It was one of the toughest, most realistic playtests ever done. I've been playing 6 hours a week during the whole of this lockdown. Traveller is a brilliant idea, melded to a system that has veered from functional to like Pathfinder 2nd edition is a marvelous RPG.
Okay. Answer me a couple of things here, Owen.
Yeah.
First of all, what year is it?
It is 2020.
Okay. How come we cannot have a hot linked PDF? And how come we have a rulebook that is laid out that badly?
It's not laid out that badly. It's laid out fairly bad. It's fairly bad, but it's not that bad. I'm
playing devil's advocate here because I do love Pathfinder too, but I do think that there are certain unforgivable things there. The rulebook, I think, is laid out terribly, and come on, a PDF, especially a PDF that size, how is it not linked?
That is down to the PDF guys, not the rules designer who did a fabulous job.
How big is it?
You know?
Oh,
Pathfinder,
it's
600 and something pages.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the size of the PDF. The PDF itself is like 200 megs or something daft. Like, it's bonkers. Wow. It's crazy big.
I'm aware I can't do a spit take on an audio sort of podcast, but yeah, that's a big...
Pathfinder or
that's a big boy.
Pathfinder PDFs tend to be so big that when you tell your printer to print, unless it's got a big spooling drive or your device does the spooling, it crashes your printer. Traveller, I love Traveller.
Okay.
I particularly enjoyed playing the Prison Planet module, so I've got very fond memories of playing it, but I do think that there's never really been that much to the system. I think it's relied heavily on the setting and the setting only and the feeling that you get from it, and certain slightly gimmicky things like you can die during character creation. I think it's always had that kind of niche, but in of itself,
that's exactly where
setting
I was
is
going
great,
to go.
but the system fairly weak.
I gotta say I've played a bit of both. And when's the last time Traveller released a new edition?
Relatively recently.
Yeah, the last one I played was the Mongoose one, but they've released one since.
Sometimes that just indicates that the engine's a bit of a lemon. If you need to keep going back to it.
Well, I mean, in terms of editions, like even that, it's only like the 6th edition or something like that. So it's fairly concurrent with D&D. It's not excessive. It's not 40k levels of new edition.
There's a quantum leap in terms of accessibility and sheer learning lessons between Pathfinder 1st, Pathfinder 2nd. It went from
totally
3.5 clone to we have learned, we've got these crazy ideas, and in many ways we're preempting the big dog, which of course I need not name. I'm going to have to throw my weight behind Pathfinder here.
Oh man, are you making me do the clean sweep?
No, it's so far it's 3-0, so really your opinion is meaningless, Shane, but you can throw your own in anyway.
My meaningless vote is that I feel like Traveller has been superseded by the big variety of other spacefaring games. I understand that there's always going to be bits of flavor that people are going to feel that only that system could do as well. And I understand the concept of the no XP life path generation and then spread on out into making your own career. I get that as an appeal, but I feel like, certainly for me, I'm not as interested in going to Traveller for something specific, whereas with Pathfinder, I can see things I want Pathfinder to do. So while it's not the hugest margin, I do think that Pathfinder takes it for me. So,
all right, that's a 4-0 victory.
That's a lot.
I will say this: the cover of the original Traveller box set is a classic.
Yeah,
This is the Free Trader Beowulf calling anyone Mayday, Mayday. Just the transmission and Traveller. I think so.
Yeah.
On a black background with red and white text, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing.
It's a bold open. It has a sort of weirdly cinematic quality to it.
And definitely for sci-fi at the time that came out, a lot of that had a similar kind of visual, fairly minimalist and chunky.
Oh yeah, it nailed it typographically. Okay, but we don't give points for typography. I'm definitely going to go back on that later on. What's our next What's our next pairing?
Next one is maybe a bit more obscure on both sides. It is RuneQuest versus D20 Modern. D20 Modern, of course, being released in the midst of the D20 glut.
I'm going to hop right in here and say I never actually played RuneQuest, but I have played D20 Modern, so I'm going to say RuneQuest.
Ooh.
RuneQuest for me, because it's the child of Greg Stafford, and it has so many amazing ideas in it that are some of which are only getting repurposed now. The idea of the hero quest, the idea of kind of like this is a guy who was an anthropologist putting together RPG settings, so it is literal, hundreds of years of kind of history on it, and there's so many ideas about this isn't faux medieval RPG, this is Bronze Age RPG. There's so many amazing ideas in it. The idea of like you had to attach yourself to legends to draw power out of it, and that's like it's a really incredible setting. Whereas D20 Modern is a bloody D20 skin for running modern event edition stuff. I mean, I had some okay ideas, but like compared to two, RuneQuest 100%.
Yeah, it's an easy one for me. RuneQuest is one of the games that lots of other game designers cite when they talk about why they made their games. D20 Modern was a kind of Me Too, and not in the good way, not hashtag Me Too, but just look at us, we're doing it as well. Attempt at catching something that they were never even close to.
I will say that as the years have gone on, my respect for the D20 glut has only decreased. I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with using a D&D or D&D system for running. Well, there probably are actually, when I think about it. But yeah, RuneQuest is something that's just always been on the edge of my radar, and it's always been intriguing. Like, if someone was running RuneQuest, I would seek them out. I would see if I could make a room in my schedule for them. But for D20 Modern game, even if they did the one of the various settings that they tried, the D20 Modern people tried.
Not very hard. I mean, if you went for D20, you weren't trying very hard. You were trying to jump on a bandwagon and get some sales.
You saw an overcrowded marketplace and said, "Me too."
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll go with RuneQuest as well. So far these have been landslide victories. Perhaps this one will be a bit.
The World Cup is just like that, It's that sometimes those opening rounds, they're just Australia beating Iraq 4-0.
So next up is the Fallout RPG from Ophidius versus the FFG version of the Star Wars RPG.
Ooh. Okay, that's really interesting for me.
They're rather modern.
I have played some 2D20 and I really like it. I haven't played Fallout 2D20. Is it out yet?
I've seen a copy in the stores. And I think it came out very late last year.
You've been to a store?
No,
tell us about that.
There's the Fallout 2D20. There's a Fallout one which is based on their wargame, but I don't think Fallout 2D20 is out yet. There's a Fallout there's one labeled as a Fallout RPG, but it's actually their minis game rules, because they did a minis game and a Fallout 2D20 game, as far as I know. I am open to being corrected in this.
Do we have a controversial ejection here?
Well,
Are they being? Are they not fitting into the bracket?
I don't know. Well, it's a future release. Are we allowing a future release to be the greatest RPG of all time?
Default.
Well, hold on. Let's see what happens in technicalities. What about the Star Wars FFG? Are people? I know some of you have played in a.
I'm trying to remember which one that was.
I have played 1,400 XP worth of that one in one campaign over 7 years, and I played in Graham's one for thing. Mick, this was the one with the funky dice.
Oh, yeah, quite like it. I'm a big fan of those funky dice because I like interpretive GMing.
That is the theory with them, certainly. That is certainly the theory with them.
I think there's lots to be said now, but as a Star Wars game, I don't think anything that was released for it was particularly interesting. It was a way of glomming a very popular license onto a controversial system. A system that I think has its place, and Star Wars wasn't a bad fit. What are we pairing this against again? A game that may or may not exist, Fallout?
I could have sworn. This is based on, roll... I'm going to say I got my top RPG thing from the Roll20 listings, so I assumed that if it was on Roll20, that it was at the very least, it would be available as PDF.
Listen, I'm going to give it to Star Wars FFG because I do actually like the underlying system. I think there's some gnarliness there that's quite good. And Star Wars is many things to many people. Fallout I have more trouble with. People, clean the skeletons out of your houses if you're going to live there for any length of time. Okay?
2D20 is a better system than Star Wars, but the Fallout one is now yet. Were we talking Mutant Chronicles or Infinity or Conan or Star Trek Adventures, I could make a better argument, but I don't know what the Fallout 2D20 looks like yet. If this is the role-playing expansion for Fallout Wasteland Warfare, which is the wargame, I'm going to give it to Star Wars FFG, despite the fact that I played an awful lot of Star Wars FFG, and I've seen where the flaws in that one are that are half fixed in Genesis. So I'll go for Star Wars FFG at the moment.
Look, we need some controversy. We need to get the people talking, and for that reason, I hate custom dice. So I'm just going to vote down FFG Star Wars straight out the gate. I hate custom dice. I bought your rulebook. Don't try and sell me some dice as well. I have bags and bags and bags full of dice. So away with you.
This is a tougher one for me because while I am a little bit opposed to custom dice, for me Fallout's a weird one. It's something I very much associate with late nights, scrounging through forgotten caves for tin beans and shotgun shells. It's not something I necessarily consider a table. I know it's a very tabletop. How is it any different
to any other survival RPG though? How is it any different to playing Twilight 2000 or 2013?
Not sure. I know. I feel like for me it's just that it's more of a one person thing. It's something you do yourself. I'm not sure I am as interested in having a party where we have one Brotherhood of Steel guy, 2 ghouls, and some crazy guy who thinks Coke is the sweat of Jesus or whatever kind of stuff you get in Fallout. I would say I'd have to swing to Star Wars for this one.
All right, 3-1.
Well, we've also all sorts of different reasons, but ultimately we're gonna land there.
This is possibly the most controversial one so far.
Bit more level. All right, what's next?
Right,
round 4.
Keep cracking on.
Round 4 is
round 1, part 4.
This one, I suspect this one's going to be pretty easy. Any and all editions of the Legend of the Five Rings RPG versus D&D 4th edition.
Interesting. D&D 4th edition is a good RPG. It has some brilliant ideas, and it also was tested weirdly. They didn't realise that brutes were a horrible idea, that that the fights all took way too long. Whereas L5R is kind of intimately tied as a sort of mostly an accessory to the CCG in some ways that the RPG players don't like people saying that. A really good RPG, had huge balance issues in 3rd edition, had bad balance issues in 2nd edition, 1st edition, but really worked a lot of the kinks out in 4th edition one. The FFG version I have not played much yet, but the 4th edition one is an excellent RPG that I'm happy to play anytime. So I'm going to go for Alpha 4.
Okay, so for me, I'm going to say this, right. Name me another RPG set in, like, pseudo-Far East. Aside from Oriental Adventures, which is just a D&D setting. There's like Jade Claw and Iron Claw with the anthropomorphic animals and stuff, but other than that...
Bushido, which is pretty old and obscure, and there was one which was written by people with, Japanese history degrees, which was a bit of an odd fish.
Yeah, but they're few and far between and very, very niche, and maybe everybody's heard of L5R. And if you want to go for that kind of, if you want to go for your pseudo-Eastern thing, it's what you go for. Like Fort Dead is just another version of D&D, but it's not even a very particularly popular version of D&D. When it came out, I despised it. I played one game and was like, I got my dailies and my hourlies and all this kind of stuff. This is just a MMORPG, but with a character sheet. That's it. And at the time, I had no friends because everybody was playing, World of Warcraft. So I couldn't know why I hated it. It was like, you come in for a point. No, I'm going to raid. All right, so that's why I got to hand it down to L5R. L5R has the recognition. It is the pseudo Eastern RPG. D&D 4th Ed is just another version of 4th Ed. Or it's just another version of D&D. There's nothing special about it.
Shane?
This one's close for me because I'm sort of riding a bit of the wave of the fourth ed revival train that people are trying to get started. It's probably not going to go anywhere, but I do sort of appreciate where they're coming from and seeing that, there were a lot of people who did have fun with 4th Ed. Also, I want to just say this. I've always found L5R incredibly intimidating. Because it's not just, Japan, land of adventure. It's very much tied up in, the cultural ethos and its own lore, and it's always felt very intimidating to me. Stuff
if you
like...
get the wrong table, you sit down and people are scolding you for not knowing basic court etiquette.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Or the horror stories of, you accepted that gift from the thing on the first attempt. Well, now you're an honourless knave and I get to cut you down.
See, if your GM pulls that shit on you, then them. I think, but it does speak to how
two swears
strong
in
it is.
A couple of seconds there. Do you want to have another swing
5 seconds. No, I think we can leave it in because it speaks to the strength of the setting. L5R is going to win for me here because 4th Ed. I'm kind of with Shane on this. I think it's due a sort of a reevaluation, a bit like the Reagan years. But L5R is absolutely like it's its own thing. It has if we want to talk about passionate fan base, don't give me your Star Wars, don't give me your D&D. L5R players are there. They are lit up. Well, they know what clan they belong to.
None of the adventuring party had a D&D themed D&D 4th Ed themed wedding.
Exactly. This is a fan base that is totally on board. If you want to, if on no other grounds, passion. L5R, be the CCG players, the RPG players, whatever, they're passionate about Rokugan and the clash of clans and the struggle against the Shadowlands, and I'll always go for passion. So, and a few swears.
The editor is going to have so much fun.
We're in a lot. I thought we were working blue these days.
It's all right. We'll avoid the whole bonsai controversy as well.
Oh look.
I said we'll avoid it, Owen.
It was a different time. It has
We're
a
not
moment
even
in
doing
history.
that. I'm not surrendering that much.
Next, so I take it L5R wins, right?
Yes, Alpha wins
Okay.
3-1.
Next.
Next one is Savage Worlds, darling of the early 2000s, versus the new 2D20 version of Mutant Chronicles.
Ooh. Ooh.
All right, who's hopping in here first now? Because I'd like to throw my oar in.
Go ahead.
Get in.
Go.
All right. I really enjoy some parts of the Mutant Chronicles. I enjoy the whole thing about that. You know, you can give your GM points that they can then use against you. That is a superb mechanic. Savage Worlds to me just lacks any and all imagination. It's like what we do. Let's get a great system like Deadlands, and let's kind of improve it a little bit. But I mean, okay, you're terrible at something, so you roll a d4 and a d6. So I guess the d4 really doesn't matter. All right, yeah, okay, go. Sure, what settings we got? I don't know. I guess some stuff. I don't know. To me, Savage Worlds is no imagination. Mutant Chronicles, they work the system well with it. They work the system well with the setting and mechanics. It's nice.
This is actually yet another close one for me. I have an awful lot of nostalgia for Mutant Chronicles because it was one of the few games that was available to me in my formative years, because I lived down the road from a Target Games miniatures factory, and so I would occasionally play very nice with the people at the office, and they would give me free supplements. So I
Dickensian tale.
I have a soft spot in my heart for Mutant Chronicles and its weird 90s aesthetic, and it's dripping with European punk. But I can't not go for Savage Worlds in the end, because Savage Worlds has been a rock, a bookend in my RPG collection ever since it came out. I ran it was the first non-D&D game I ran. It was the first time I ran a campaign that I consider a legitimate success. And for all its genericness, I always felt like the ethos of Savage Worlds just fits gaming very, very well. It's this idea: act out, try difficult things, fail, lose, get a Benny for being funny about how you lost, get up and try again. And I just feel like in the end I can't abandon Savage Worlds, not this late in my life.
I've actually just pulled the Explorers edition off of the shelf in front of me, and that's the only time I'll be able to say this evening, because it's the only RPG I have within easy reach. But I think that kind of nails it for me. Mutant Chronicles movie, I wasn't wild about, and I don't really know much about the game itself. Savage Worlds has served me well as a system I can write a con scenario for and not have to sweat the system too much, and I'm fairly sure it'll do for most of the things I want to do. I've used it to run a Hiroshima game. I've used it to run a Big Trouble in Little China. To write a Big Trouble in Little China game. It's very flexible, and I think we all at some point want a better gymnast, and Savage Worlds is definitely that flexible beast.
Oh god, you would turn a phrase, Mick.
Who's left?
Desperately torn on this one, as torn as I can be. 2D20 is by far a better system than Savage Worlds. However, Savage Worlds came out in 2003. It's only 3 years younger than like D&D 3rd edition, to put that in kind of crazy thing. It's 17 years old. They brought out in 2018 the Savage Worlds Adventurers edition, which tweaked the rule set a bit, modernized it in a couple of places, made one big rules change to soak rules and bennies, but that's really it. It can't modify itself that much because its whole principle is being quick and easy to run. But I think 2D20 is a better system. And if I'm like, and I really love Savage Worlds, I think it's very good at, I think it had a level of crunch that was more acceptable to people who weren't very good at crunch. And you could still get a bit of tactics, bit of edge in it. I do really agree with Liam, about the lack of the loss of some of the flavour in it. It's never, even with trappings, it's never gotten the kind of same level of detail there are in some of the other books in it. And it's just the way the game is structured to be a little bit more cut down. So I am desperately torn here. I think I'm going to have to go with 2d20 and betray Savage Worlds.
This is the first tie. Was that a 2-all split?
That appears to be a tie.
All right, we're tied.
I think we have to go to the dice.
Okay, so how are we doing this? What is it, a D4 and a D6? Do they explode?
Both of these settings use d20s.
Right.
2d20 uses 2d20. Savage Worlds uses all of the different dice at different times.
Very unlikely to see a D20 come out.
It is like, you roll them on. There are certain tables you roll a d20 on in Savage Worlds.
Alright, so D20 low is our Mutant Chronicles, high is our...
Yes, exactly.
Savage
Appropriate,
Worlds.
because you want to roll low Mutant Chronicles.
16.
Ooh.
All right.
So
Goes
that
to
means Savage Worlds takes
Savage Worlds gets
Savage
through.
Worlds takes it, yeah.
All right, let's move on, and we'll let the community decide how open and transparent our system is.
How much of criminals we are.
We're moving on. I think we have time for one more. We're just to take a few nibbles at our 64-man list. So for our finale, let's go with the Star Wars D20 systems. That would be the original, the revised, and Saga, whichever pick as you choose, versus the editions of Pendragon, the Tale of Arthurian Myth.
Oh boy.
I'd just like to say for the start that I've seen an awful lot of people try to combine these in various ways because they just like the knight aesthetic has always appealed to a few people.
Pendragon always had a kind of a good campaign thing, but the actual in-res on it was never particularly good. So I guess that's probably where people are looking at trying to combine kind of the in-res action of another game with the ongoing campaign thing of Pendragon.
The one of the three great historical campaigns is the Great Pendragon campaign, and my main idea for running it was going, man, I wish maybe I could run this in BattleTech, and really have something a bit funky. Really have something a bit funky going on.
Ooh, how valuable are apiaries in BattleTech?
You could do a version of one which is really good.
I think GW stole your idea, Owen. That's basically the whole night houses in 40k.
God, I love the night houses. They're so good.
Man, I don't know. Pendragon, I only know it anecdotally, but I'm pretty sure I must have played through a good chunk of Star Wars D20, and I can't say.
Did you play all three editions?
He played all three editions.
Oh yeah, I did.
The only thing I remember standing out with Star Wars D20, and I did kind of like it at the time, was the difference between your vitality and your hit points. Your vitality was your general getting bonked around, and then when you eventually entered a vitality, you started taking hits in the hit points, or certain crits would do your hit points in, and your vitality refreshed at a quicker rate. I thought that was kind of cool and kind of explained the whole how you can get stabbed 15 times and be like, sure, I'm grand.
Yeah. So endurance and sort of stamina bar versus health.
Yeah, other than that, I don't recall much of note about it at all. Whereas Pendragon is a classic; it's a staple. Like it is one of the big ones of gaming. Maybe not in terms of sales volume, but in terms of what it does.
I feel like no one wants to fire the first shot on this one.
I'm going with Pendragon. I'm just saying. Okay. I'm letting discussion happen first, but Pendragon all the way.
Yeah. I think. Well, see, Star Wars D20 has the natural advantage of having two very important video games made using it.
That's to stand on its own two legs, Shane. That's to stand on its own two legs.
Oh, you're right.
The thing is, though, that the Knights of the Old Republic system is like the actual Star Wars thing, but very clearly they took a bit of a chainsaw and some spare parts from other RPGs and glued them together to make it, because Well, I should probably have the veterans talk about it
I'm
more.
sorry. Can we talk about how badly Knights of the Old Republic 2 just you as a player? Like, you're sitting there going, "Oh, I'm setting up these defenses. We're building up this big battle. I've got to defend this base." I was like, "No, here's a cutscene. Why don't you just sit over there and play with your lightsaber?" Like, I hated that game. I stopped playing after that mission. And you're right. It's the D20 version of Star Wars. It's all flooding back to me now. Oh, I think I might go for Pendragon here.
Ugh.
It is like, it's hard for me because I played 7 years of D20 Star Wars and got pretty good at it by the end.
And plenty of people have been in loveless marriages for longer.
Oh, look, absolutely. I've never played Pendragon, and Pendragon is, as I recall, based on the BRP engine. It just uses a D20 instead of a D100, so it's effectively percentile based. I think it's got a classic campaign. I think Star Wars D20 was a decent rule set for playing in Star Wars. It was not the best Star Wars rule set. It was probably an acceptable one. So from that point of view, despite me doing some phenomenal damage with tempered aggression, I'm probably going to have to go for Pendragon.
I'm just happy that it was probably an acceptable rules, wasn't a big enough bar to get through to the next round.
Yeah.
I would hope you'd be against some weak competition for. It was alright.
Is Pendragon taking it then?
Well, did you go for Pendragon? Yeah, you went for. I'd have to say, Star Wars has a couple of entries on this list because it's had a strong legacy in the RPG, but even it doesn't really hold a candle to Pendragon. And
not that version of it.
Pendragon just sort of looms large in the distance. Like Star Wars, you could do in any system. You could
run a Savage World Star Wars.
1,000. Yeah. You can do 1,000 different takes and tries and use bits of the setting and throw out other bits. But Pendragon just sort of looms like a monolith. It's got this appealing element of it. It's just like this of the grand campaign and like the roots of your English and French mythology and part of it. But it's also one of those ideas that could very easily invite, we have to fix this part of it. We need to have lady knights. We need to have, different ethnicities. And it's sort of a thing that is good in and of itself, but also good as something to react to. Whereas Star Wars is just going to be there, and there's going to be 1,000 different ways to play it. But Pendragon sort of demands attention. It demands that you try to figure out what you're going to do with it. And I think that is enough to take it for me. So that is a 4-0 to Pendragon.
Yeah, sorry, D20 Star Wars. You couldn't do it. Couldn't get it.
And we have been at this for a little while.
So how far into our list are we?
We are almost a quarter way into the first round.
Oh man.
Okay, how far off a quarter?
Okay, let's go for a quarter.
We need to do a full quarter.
All right, okay. So the next one.
All
right, next one is this one's going to be a tough one, and maybe it's going to end as a few enemies either way. Well, that's the point though. Is Call of Cthulhu, any edition, versus the various Powered by the Apocalypse games. So Powered by the Apocalypse, for those who do not know, is somewhere between a rules set and a rules ethos that has been gotten a lot of traction in the last decade in the indie gaming scene. The basic idea being that it's not built around structure of rules and rounds and turns and such, but you say what you're doing in the fiction, and if what you do triggers one of a move, then you roll to do the move, and if you succeed, the move tells you how things play out in the fiction, and if you fail, the GM gets to decide what horrible twist they want to do next. So in this example, yeah.
I think you've just kind of ruled this one pretty much automatically, because there's probably a chunk of the audience who have not heard of this, so therefore needed that explanation. How many of them could we say the same thing for with Call of Cthulhu?
That's a tough one.
I mean, if it was up against softer competition, this might be a debate, but it's not a debate. I mean, Call of Cthulhu, like it is, it's a big one, you know, like and like there's so many great campaigns with it.
Yeah, well written stuff, and it has the great literary sort of mythos behind it. But here's a counter argument, and almost this is perverse in a sense, but this setting and this system actually kind of need each other. This is a really interesting duet to put up against each other, because Call of Cthulhu has always had this problem that its rule set
terrible
doesn't really accurately reflect the themes and the nature of the game. In fact, Powered by the Apocalypse might arguably be a great way to run a Call of Cthulhu game.
I'm almost certain there are dozens of Cthulhu hacks for Powered by the Apocalypse.
And you know what? Maybe a Chaosium should sort of look sideways and go, hey, actually, we should adopt one of these sort of storyteller-style indie systems, and instead of listing the exact damage of a Tommy gun in a setting where it doesn't matter, whatever you think a Tommy gun is going to do, it's not going to do anything.
You might be onto something, because my favourite version of Call of Cthulhu is actually Trail of Cthulhu.
Which is, published by Helgrim Press.
Yeah.
We just interviewed.
Yeah, I think it just works, the whole nature of finding the clues and stuff like
being it more like I say what I'm going to do.
Is what every version of Call of Cthulhu that I have played uses. Maybe there's some other ones that don't use it, but it's not a very good system, you know?
I like Powered by the Apocalypse because it is it's built into the name. Things are not going well, and they're probably not going to go well from here on in, as when we start the story. And that's every Call of Cthulhu story. That's every Cthulhu story. That's every Mythos story. I want to give it to Powered by the Apocalypse on the mechanics. I agree. It doesn't have the pedigree, and it doesn't have some of the grand old dams, the Red Mask. The original
Apocalypse World is like 10 years old now.
Yeah, but let's face it. I mean, Call of Cthulhu, like the Chaosium, have 3 times that on the plate. They do get there's lots of good writers, great writers, who've put blood, sweat, and tears into making great games and settings in that system. It's a tough one. I'd like to be the iconoclast here. I think if we came back to it 10 years from now, maybe Apocalypse systems could win out here. But I do have to respect the writing. Call of Cthulhu has some of the great scenarios. Some actually, one of the best introductory here's how you roleplay scenarios is the Haunted House.
Yep.
The
legacy of Call of Cthulhu, like Call of Cthulhu is, for me, it's probably a quarterfinalist on this thing, quite possibly.
But this was close.
It is like Powered by the Apocalypse is a fantastic RPG. It's got a lot of influence for how long it's been about. Absolutely, the idea of this, the books and everything. Yeah, great stuff. Call of Cthulhu is a classic, and it's often makes best RPG of all time. It's got such a pedigree of campaigns.
Yeah, it's still mechanically weak though.
It is. It's mechanically.
It could meet someone in the next round.
Yeah, it could well do. But
okay, I have
just
to give
such a pedigree.
Call of Cthulhu.
I think I'll take it upon myself to be the dissenter here. I've never liked Cthulhu.
You're not desperately wrong either.
Not even just it's not even the system for me. It's just I've never gotten into the Cthulhu horror mindset. It's never been what
You're not racist enough for it, Shane.
Yeah, you like black people too much. Which is, I think that's something that has been
it's something that Call of Cthulhu thankfully glazes over in more modern editions.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at some of the older editions, they are kind of problematic. There are the guys, the cannibals in the grass skirts going ooga booga at you like that. that is problematic.
Etc.
As much as it is a staple of the genre, it's not exactly cool, you know?
Largely mercifully excised.
Yeah, he was a messed up guy.
He was.
He led a very sheltered existence and then ran straight into a melting pot of humanity that he wasn't prepared for,
Yeah.
and decided to interpret that in the worst way possible. He is, creators and creation, we can have that debate all day. The people who've written for the game Call of Cthulhu are fantastic writers. There's been excellent scenarios produced, and we shouldn't let any of that tarnish their efforts. Powered by the Apocalypse is pretty forthright, like it's a pretty can-do, righteous system. It is potentially one that could attach itself to a great campaign someday. Mechanically, much more interesting in my view, but we've all played good Call of Cthulhu games. We've all had a blast.
If it helps, I did think when we started discussing this that I was just hands down Call of Cthulhu, but I am now going to say that it is begrudgingly
I think it's quite
going
tight
towards Call of Cthulhu now.
Yeah, it's tight, and we're going to have to give it to the grand old dame here, but only just. She's going to need to step up her game.
Okay.
All right.
Right. Well, for the finale of this wonderful, this quarter of the first round, we're going to go with the various Game of Thrones / Song of Ice and Fire RPGs versus the Exalted systems.
Ooh.
So choose your favorite Game of Thrones / Song of Ice and Fire RPG versus your favorite edition of Exalted. There's a kung fu fight versus the heavens themselves.
Now, enlighten me. Was there not just the Green Ronin one?
No, there was a Game of Thrones one put out by, I think it was Guardians of Order, which was insanely controversial.
Okay.
Because of the guy who did Guardians of Order did a lot of really dubious things around the time. And it was... I actually have the limited edition of it somewhere,
Wait, are we talking about Exalted or Game of Thrones here?
Yeah.
This is Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Right.
It was
okay.
Tristat DX. That was what it was. Which is
a license that puts itself about as much as Tyrion Lannister.
Yeah,
that'd be fair.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's been more. There is probably listeners there. You might think you know all editions of the Song of Ice and Fire RPG, but there's probably more than you realize.
Well, I can only speak to the Green Ronin one, which I did enjoy quite a lot. It did have a whole thing. It brought in a whole mechanic for social combat, which I thought wasn't really something I'd seen work that well in a lot of games, and I did think it worked very well in that system. It kind of put it on a par to actually fighting with swords, in that you can inflict points and wounds and statuses and stuff on people. So it was kind of nifty. And as a GM, you could tweak that as well to, if I did give a big spiel, to, tweak my dice results to move it in. Having said that, I have a soft spot for punching somebody through a mountain. Or walking into the middle of an enemy camp and going, "Oh, hello, yes, you're to move the entire army 100 miles to the west," and I'm just walking out again, snickering, going, "Ha ha 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 ha." So there's a certain joy in the ludicrous overpoweredness of Exalted.
I'm going to give it to Exalted on unrealized potential, because the idea of that I'm playing a ridiculous character, a god king who will shake the pillars of heaven, is a very appealing fantasy, not terribly well served otherwise.
Yeah.
It's starting to come about because people want to play that kind of power fantasy, but it wasn't that well served back when Exalted first came out, so I'm going to give it to Exalted. First
Ed was kind of unbalanced, but it's probably the one people know best. Second Ed never really took off, and then I believe there was a Kickstarter that I don't know, did it even deliver?
It did. It's
I think Exalted Third Ed is actually out, and it's been out for about a year maybe, but I don't think it's lit the world on fire.
It is the best of them, mechanically. It is also... I would consider the crafting system excessive. And redundant at times.
Damn. You played 7 years of Star Wars 5 FFG.
I fear no mechanics, but let me tell you this. It's excessive.
For me... maybe it's just that, as of the last book and also the TV series, the Song of Ice and Fire franchise is sort of soured for me, but I'm still leaning more towards Exalted on this one. Again, a lot of it is unrealized potential. Exalted is always promised big, but had problems with execution. But it's just one of those really big settings that always invites, a little bit like Pendragon. It's one of those big things that just say, I got to do something with this. I don't know whether it's I have to play it or run a campaign of it or destroy it or make my own better version of it. I have to do something with Exalted.
That was a controversial thing at the second edition, is that the rulebook says the world was destroyed, but in its dying days there was great glory in heroes trying to bring it together and stop it. Ooh, controversial. Anyway.
So, Mick, did you...
I've reserved my judgment because these are two properties that I've almost no contact with.
I as much as I enjoyed the Green Ronin, Game of Thrones, the Song of Ice and Fire thing, if you say to somebody Song of Ice and Fire game or Game of Thrones game, they will probably automatically think of the Fantasy Flight Games board game, which was excellent. And as much as the Green Ronin game had some good elements, it was flash in the pan and never really took off. And, it was fine. There was nothing wrong with it. But it wasn't like, oh my god, that was great. Exalted is a big one, and I played a campaign of it for years and thoroughly enjoyed it. Despite its unbalanced nature. Bit of massaging and that's fine. Never let your Dawncast have or Shalcom armor.
Despite my lack of familiarity, I've got an opinion. Exalted. I bounced right off it back in the day when it arrived. This was this is the World of Darkness guys. Like they all of a sudden just flip flopped into some sort of Fist of the North Star, sort of three eyes white dragon anime stuff. I didn't understand what the hell they were doing at all. I read probably 3.5 books of The Song of Ice and Fire and gave up as it sort of produced more and more anti-narrative, killing off characters who were ostensibly important right up until the point where they were dead. I've come around and Exalted in a big way. I finally understand what it was trying to do, and it is delivering some pretty raw Street Fighter the movie fun. And I think that's where I land here. Exalted games just look like fun. As Liam said, this is a game where you can punch your opponent through a mountain. Exalted, probably for me, really needed One Punch Man to kind of cement it in my mind. Like, this is why this is good. Like, Exalted is probably the best One Punch Man RPG you can hope to play, because you're going to have to play it with other people, so you can't be One Punch Man. But you can be the sort of white-eyed tiger style fighting guru, and to one side of you is the crane style sweeping wing guru, and to the other side of you is buffalo charge guru, and you're going to have a great time as you defenestrate entire armies. It's a great system. Song of Ice and Fire, I respect what he's trying to do. It's an interesting history lesson, but it's not a good work of narrative fiction. I'll land with White Wolf here and say Exalted takes the bracket.
Okay then. Well, we have our winners for the first quarter of the first round. This may be a recurring segment, folks, and I can't really guarantee that the same people will be back every time. But we shall see. We shall see.
It's a free-form elimination bracket RPG read-along adventure.
I'm sure some of you think we were very wrong about some of the things we said, but...
And if you do, you can hit us up on our social media.
Yeah.
Or come to our Discord to loudly crank, or sign up to SpeakPipe so that you can have your 3-hour rant split up into 15-second segments. But in the meantime, we will prepare to see if we can get together, do this again sometime, or if we have to drop everything to plan our 600th episode.
Bum, bum, bum.
But in the meantime, I think this party's over. Thanks for listening to The Adventuring Party. You can find show notes and links to things we've mentioned at www.theadventuringparty.net and on our Facebook page. You can leave comments there or talk to our Twitter account at AdventuringPTY. Or you can record a voice message at www.speakpipe.com/theadventuringparty. The host can be contacted directly by email at Liam, Owen, Savage or Scar, 2 R's, at theadventuringparty.net. If you'd like to be touched with the party all the time, come join our Discord server, link in the show notes. The Adventuring Party is released under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, Share-alike, version 3 license.